Hey guys, this is Mr. Sal. This is a quick lesson on linear functions and graphs and how to find slope and write equations for some of these also. Alright you guys, we'll go ahead and start this lesson. Take a couple minutes to try this problem, and while you guys are trying it, just a couple announcements. Remember that the test is next week and the review or the practice test will be due the day of the test, and it is for credit. It is going on your grade. Also, today's a shortened lesson, but we should still be able to get through all of this content. So take a minute here with this starting problem and find and write the equation for all four of these lines. Alright, let's go over these ones. So the first one I'm going to start with is this L1, which is this line right here. And I can find a couple points on this line that that will help me to figure out what the slope is. So it looks like I got this one here, and well, it looks like this one here in the end. So this one goes down 5, and then to the right it appears to be 12. So the slope on this thing, and yeah, we'll write this out: y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept. The slope is down 5, to the right 12. That's already simplified. And also we see that it goes through the point 0, 5 right there, which is the y-intercept. So the y value would be positive 5. Next up we'll do L2, which is this line right here. And I just need to choose 2 points on this line. I'll choose 2 that are kind of convenient on this one, just for the slope. And I can see that this one goes down 2, and then to the right 2. So that would be negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. And then this one crosses the y-axis here at 0, 6. So that's a positive 6 as the y value in the y-intercept. So I'll write that as plus 6. Next up we'll do L3, or line 3, which is this one right here. So this one, we'll choose a couple points on this one. Looks like I can use these 2 here. And that appears to go up 3 for the slope, and then to the right 4. So the slope would be up 3 to the right 4. And that's simplified already. And it goes through this point right here. We couldn't figure out exactly what that y-intercept is, so we'll have to use a different form. So the y-intercept can be found by using equation manipulation. Y-intercept is generally denoted with the letter B, and it's found by taking the y value and subtracting the slope, which we know, and multiplying it by some x value. So we just need to choose a point that we've already found, and I'm going to use this one right here, which appears to be at 7, 8 right there. So I'm going to replace the y and x values respectively. The x is 7 and the y is 8. And also the slope is shown as 3/4. So when I plug this into a calculator, I get 11/4, and that would be the y-intercept, and that's a positive 11/4. So that would be the equation for line 3. Next up, line 4 right here at the bottom. To find the slope, I'll be using this point here, and this one, this goes up 2, and then appears to the right 8. So that would be 2 over 8, which would simplify to be 1/4. This one we have the y-intercept here, which appears to be at 0, negative 10. So the y-intercept would be 0, and the y value is negative 10. So we get the equation y equals 1/4 x minus 10. And that is all 4 equations for all 4 lines. Now that that's complete, have the sub take a minute, if they have not already, and pass out the pink worksheets, which we are going over today for classwork. Alright, so we're starting on this side with linear functions, graphs, and tables. Number 1, a ride in a cab costs 40 cents plus 15 cents per mile. We'll write and graph an equation for traveling X miles in the cab. They've kind of already put together the graph for us, so we'll just put the line on there. B, the cab charges 70 cents for a ride of how many miles? And C, how much does the cab charge for a trip of 8 miles? This is 3 questions with the graph and the equation. It's kind of 4, but we're going to give you guys a couple minutes to work on this with your neighbor, but use the time wisely. Try to go through all 3 and figure out the answers for all 3. Couple minutes with your neighbor. Go. So in this problem, just for the equation for this one, we know it should be y equals the slope times the x plus the y-intercept. And the slope, for this one, since it's a word problem, it's kind of a rate of change, right? And it's changing by 15 cents per mile. So that would be the slope for this one, 15 cents, multiplied by x, which is the number of miles. But just to start out, the cab cost you 40 cents no matter what, so that would be our starting fee. And that would be the equation, y equals 0.15x plus 0.40. So the next thing we're going to do is graph this equation on the graph that they've already given us. And we can see the y-intercept is 0.40, so 40 cents, which means it'd be 40 cents for 0 miles on this one. So that would be 40 cents right here. Alright, so from here I'm just going to use the slope, which is 15 cents for every mile. So another mile, that's 40 cents. Another 15 cents would make that 55, about right there. So another mile would be another 15 cents, and that gives us 2 miles for 70 cents. Another 15 cents for another mile, 85 cents for 3 miles, and another 15 cents for the 4th mile there, puts us at exactly $1. Another mile would put us at $1.15, and then another mile would put us at $1.30, and then another mile would be $1.45, and then another mile would be at $1.60. That's all I can fit on this. Now this is a straight line, which is nice, and we get to connect the points because we get to assume that you could have half a mile and also half $1 for this one. So I am going to connect the points, which then gives us a line. Now these next 2 questions, now that we have the graph, we can use the graph to figure out the answers for these 2. For example, 70-cent ride would be right here. That's 70 cents. So that's at this point. So how many miles is that? 2 miles. If you have 70 cents, you can go 2 miles in the cab. But the next question says, well, how much would an 8-mile trip cost? So there's 8 miles on the graph. So I'm just going to follow that line up to this point on the line. And this will tell me the cost at $1.60. So if I went on an 8-mile trip, again, it would be $1.60. Alright guys, here's number 2. We want to graph the equation of this line. Take 1 minute, do that with your neighbor, talk about how you would do it, and get it done. 1 minute, go. Alright, on this one, you could make a table, which most people do on this. However, for me, I'm just going to identify what the slope is, and that is -4. Now I'm going to write it as -4 over 1, though, on purpose, because that tells us it has a rise of -4. That means it's going to go down 4, and that 1 is positive, so it will go to the right 1. Well, it's going to have that pattern, but where does it start from? Well, that's where the y-intercept comes in. This y-intercept, that's positive 6, so it's going to go through the point 0, 6 on the graph. So we find where x is 0, y is 6, which would be this point right here. from there, we'll go down 4 and then to the right one, which gives me the next point. And I can go down 4 to the right one again for the next one and repeat this process throughout the graph. And we can see the pattern remains true, and so I can connect these points to make the line for this equation. So the purple line here would be the line that represents this equation. Alright, with your neighbor, do number 3. Just graph the equation, graph the line from this equation. Give you guys a minute and a half to do that with your neighbor. Alright, your minute and a half is up. It's time to pay attention for this one. Let's go ahead and look again. I'm going to use the same method. I have a slope which is -2/1, which again is rise, indicates it will go down 2, and as a run, it will go to the right 1. Well, from where though? We got to have a point to start from, and that would be the y-intercept, which is at 0, 7. That would be this point right here. So from there, we'll go down 2 to the right 1, which is this next point, down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1, and this is where these next points come in, of course. And we get all the way down to the bottom corner of this graph. Let's go ahead and just graph the line now to finish this off. And there we have it, the line, the graph for this linear equation. Alright, number 4 is the same idea. We're going to graph this linear equation. Take 1 minute to do that with your partner, talk about it. And then in one and a half minutes, we'll go over this as a class. Alright, your minute and a half are up. Let's go ahead and graph this equation. Once again, we got a slope here. That's at -3, but I'm going to show it as -3/1. Why? Because that shows the rise, which means it's going to go down 3 because it's -3. And the run, which is a +1, so it'll go to the right 1. And yes, this will start at this point from the y-intercept at 0, -1. So that would be this point on the graph. So I will go down 3 to the right 1, down 3 to the right 1. Now, this isn't a lot of the graph, so I want to graph the other points as well. So I'm just going to switch where that negative is. It's still 3/1, but the 1 is going to be negative. So now this will go up 3, and then to the left 1 instead of to the right 1. So let's start. We'll go up 3 to the left 1, up 3 to the left 1. And again, the point of this is to make a straight line, right? So will this make a straight line? Let's just go ahead and connect the points and find out. And yeah, that seems to work. So we'll put some arrows on the end of that line. And the purple line there is the graph for the equation. Alright, you guys take a minute and a half to do these 4 points. Just see if they lie on the lines from A, B, and C. Take a minute, talk about that with your partner, and determine if they are on these 3 lines. Alright, I'm going to start with number 5, and we'll check it for all 3 equations. Now this should look pretty familiar after we get the values replaced, but what I mean by that, it should look like the equations that we solved in the last unit. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this equation right here, y equals x plus 5, and replace the values that we have from the point. The x value is 0, and the y value is 5. This is what we would do to check to see if an equation is true. If it is true, then the point is on that line. Well, 5 does equal 5. That is true. So we know that 0, 5 would be at least on line A. Let's go to the next line. And for this one, we're replacing the x and y values with the same values again. So we've got x value of 0, y value of 5. And we're seeing if this is true. Well, this would be 5 equals 7, which is not true. So this one would not be on line B. Then finally line C. And yes, I'll go ahead and replace the x and y values from that equation. where the x value is 0 and the y value is 5. Well, evaluating this one would give us 5 equals negative 1, so are they equal? No, this one wouldn't work either. So 0, 5 is only on the line y equals x plus 5, line A. Well, we're going to repeat the process for 6, 7, and 8. Let's start with 6. Alright, so I've got these set up just for us to start with. And again, we got x value of 1, y value of 6. 1 plus 5 does equal 6, so we know that 1, 6 also is on the line A. Let's do the same thing. X is 1, y is 6. And negative 1 plus 7 is also 6. And 6 does equal 6, so this one is true. So it's also on line B. Let's check line C finally. So x is 1, y is 6. This would be 6 equals 1, which is not true. So the point 1,6 is not on the line y equals 2x minus 1. Alright, let's try with number 7, which has an x value of 8 thirds and a y value of 13 thirds. Well, 8 thirds plus 5, that would be 15 thirds. That'd be 23 thirds, which does not equal 13 thirds, so that's no good. Next up, we'll try line B. Y is 13 thirds, and the x value is 8 thirds. So that'd be negative 8 thirds plus 21 thirds, which, yeah, that one does give us positive 13 thirds. Of course, you could use your calculator to figure that out. So it is on the line B. But finally, let's check line C. So 2 times the x value, which would be 8 thirds there. And we want to see if this is equal to 13 thirds. So that would be 16 thirds minus 3 thirds, which would be 13 thirds. And so these are equal, which means that at this point 8 thirds and 13 thirds is also on line C. The last one on this one is where x is 0, y is negative 1. Again, we're seeing if this is true. Well, that'd be negative 1 equals 5, which is not true. So the point 0, negative 1 is not on line A. But what about the next one? 0, negative 1. Sorry, I'll use a different color here. And we'll see if this is true. Negative 1 would equal 7 in this case, which is not true. And then finally, the last one, I've got 0 as x, y is negative 1. This would give us negative 1 does equal negative 1. So this one's true, which means at this point, 0, negative 1 would be on the line C. Alright, you guys should have that one done. So we need your attention up here to the front. On all 4 of these, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to be using these equations from A, B, and C to see if they give us a true statement. So just like we did on that last one, I've just got the skeleton of each of the 3 equations, and then we'll see if it gives us a true statement. So on number 9, x is 4 and y is 9. Again, I'm looking at equation A there, and we'll see if this is true. So 4 plus 5 does equal 9. So yes, 0.49 would be on that line A at least. Next up, we got that y equals negative x plus 7. So x is 4 and y is 9. And again, we're seeing if that's true. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3, so this one is not true, and that point would not be on the line B. Next up, for line C, y equals 2x minus 1. So x is 4 and y is 9. And this would be 9 equals 2 times 4 is 8, minus 1 is 7. So it would not be on line C either. So the point 49 is only on line A. Next up for 10, I'll just go through each of these and replace the x values with 4 and the y values with 3 from the point 43. And let's see how these turn out. So 4 plus 5 is 9, so this one would not be true. So it's not on line A. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. So 3 does equal 3. So it is on the line B. Y equals negative x plus 7. And 2 times 4 is 8 minus 1. That again would be 7. And 3 does not equal 7. So it is not on line C either. So then we'll do the same thing on 11 where x is negative 2 and y is negative 5. So the line A, negative 2 plus 5 would be 3, which does not equal negative 5. So it's not on line A. Line B, negative of negative 2 would be positive 2 plus 7 is 9, which also does not equal negative 5. And negative 2 times 2 is negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5, which does equal negative 5. So this point is on line C. And the last one we'll be using the point negative 8, 15. And again, we'll just see if these are true. So line A, y equals x plus 5. That shows that 15 would equal negative 3, which is false. So it's not on line A. On line B, y equals negative x plus 7. So that's the negative of negative 8. That's positive 8 plus 7 is 15. So it is on line B. And then finally, 2 times negative 8 is negative 16 minus 1 is negative 17, which does not equal 15. So that's false, and it would not be on line C. So each of these points is only on one of the lines, and that's okay. But again, this is how we would check to see if that point is on the line. It's got to make the equation true. Alright, here it is, the quiz. On Saturdays, Jim likes to go to the mall and play video games or pinball. Round-trip bus fare to and from the mall is $1.80. Jim spends 50 cents for each video or pinball game. Part A is to write an equation for the amount of money M it costs Jim to go to the mall and play N video or pinball games. B, what is the slope of the line your equation represents? What does the slope tell you about this situation? C, what is the y-intercept of the line, and what does the y-intercept tell you about the situation? D, how much will it cost Jim to travel to the mall and play 8 video or pinball games? E, if Jim has $6.75, how many video or pinball games can he play at the mall? Alright, we're going to give you guys a few minutes to do this one. Should be able to answer all 5 of these, and then we'll go over it as a class. Alright, let's go ahead and go over this one. I'm going to use different variables than the ones they gave us, but I know the amount of money he spends will depend on how many video games he plays. So I'm going to write it as y equals the rate of change times the x plus the amount to start with. So the rate of change is going to be 50 cents for every video game, because it's going the amount he spends will change as he plays more or less video games. And each of those will be 50 cents each. But he's got to pay the bus fare one way or the other, even if he plays 0 video games. So that would be how much it's going to cost just to start with, is $1.80. So the slope in this one, which is the rate of change, is the 50 cents. Specifically, what does it tell us about the situation? It's 50 cents per game, even if that game is pinball. Part C, what is the y-intercept of the line? This is going to be 0 and 180. Now again, when asked for y-intercept, we need to show it as an ordered pair. But what does it tell us about the situation? It's $1.80 for bus fare. Part D, how much will it cost Jim to travel to the mall and play 8 video or pinball games? So I'm going to go back and use the equation for this one, but I'm going to replace x, which represents the number of video or pinball games, and that is going to be 8 of them. So those 8 games for 50 cents is going to be $4, plus the $1.80 would be $5, $0.80. That would be the total cost to play 8 video or pinball games. E. If Jim has $6.75, how many video or pinball games can he play at the mall? So I'm going to use the same equation, the one that we have there from part A, and I'm going to replace y, which is the cost, with $6.75. So this becomes an equation that we can solve. And this comes down to $4.95 just for the games. After we subtract that, I'm using the subtraction principle of equality, just like we did from the last unit. And this is a one-step equation now that we can solve. So all I need to do now is divide both sides of the equation by 50 cents. So this is the answer that we get, 9.9. What this means is, and we can't round this up because he just doesn't have the money for it. Some of you guys see that he's just off by 5 cents. So he can't play 10 games, and he can't play 0.9 games, because if you put 45 cents in to the machine, it still won't let you play it all. So the final answer for this one would be 9 games. He can play 9 games if he has $6.75. Of course, that first $1.80 went towards bus fare, and then he only has enough to play 9 games. If he did, he would have 45 cents remaining from that $4.95 after the bus fare. So that's the answers to the quiz. I hope this helped you guys out. Don't forget the test is on Monday for A days and on Tuesday for B days. Don't forget to bring your review or the practice test with you on that day. It will be due that day, and it is on the grade, so it is for credit. Alright, if you guys could please put the calculators back and pick up the floor around your desk, and then prepare for the sub to release you once the bell rings. Alright, so that does it for this lesson. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope it was helpful. If it did help you, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and just make a comment below. See you guys in the next one.